Awesome. Here we go. So welcome back to week 3 of the Mindset Shift course. Today, we're going to be talking about habits, specifically how to build them if you're trying to create some sort of healthy habit in your life. Just to refresh, week 1, we spoke about stories and self-talk. Last week, we spoke about setting goals, and now we're talking about habits. So all of these things are always building on top of each other. Always remember that what we learned in the previous weeks does not go out the window. Stories and self-talk and goal setting directly tie into the habits that we are trying to build. So on the screen here, you can see 4 books, 3 numbers. The numbers 66, 10, and 4. 66 is the number of books that I read last year in the year 2020. 10 books last month in January, and 4 already in the month of February when we record this on February 14th, Valentine's Day. And I don't say this to brag. These 4 books that you see pictured are all books on habits, which I have also read within the last few months. And I say this to make you understand that the only way that I have been able to read this much is by making it a habit. Reading is as much a part of my life as brushing my teeth is or tying my shoes. I have habitualized it to the point that it's not an active task for me anymore. It's something that I just do as a part of my life. And because of that, I'm able to read so much and take in all these things. So one, if you want to learn more about habits, I recommend all of these books, and I'll be talking more about them. But this is just something to understand that habits are extremely powerful. All right, so remember, every time we're always going through this change loop. We always start with awareness. So what is a habit? A habit is something that we do over and over, but on a subconscious level. So the key factor of a habit is that it is subconscious, that we do not have to think about it. Brushing your teeth is a habit at a certain point. We don't really consciously think, all right, I need to brush my teeth left, right, left, right, left, right. We do it habitually. As we spoke about in weeks 1 and 2, our brain is always looking for lower level activities that it can push back to our subconscious, right? We only have so much energy. We only have so much time. So our brain always wants to push as much as it can from its upper level conscious thinking into its lower level subconscious thinking. But we have to remember that being subconscious is a part of the habit of being what a habit is. So this is important when we think about things like people often talk about wanting to build habits, and they'll say something like, I want to make going to the gym into a habit. I want to make exercise into a habit. And we're going to talk more about later about the difficulties of habits and understand that to make it a habit, it has to be subconscious. So can you make an entire exercise routine subconscious? Some people might say yes, some people might say no. Is it possible? That's arguable, but this is one of the key things that we have to understand. We have to not be able to think about it for it to be a habit. So this is why going to work, even though I do it every day, is not going to be a habit, because I still have to get up. I have to do the thing. I have to think. I have to go through the motions that take upper level thinking. Like driving to work might be habitual. I can go into autopilot. I can zone out. But the actual process of doing the work, it's going to be very hard for me to habitualize it unless it's a very rote thing. So if I'm a factory worker and I do the exact same 1,000 times a day, then that could be habitualized. But if it's something where I actually have to solve problems, or I actually have to think, or I actually have to be on my feet, that's not going to be habitualized nearly as easy. So again, habit is something that is subconscious, right? That's the most important thing that you have to understand. Some myths about habits that I just want to debunk right now. The biggest one is that a habit is built after X many days. People always say this, like 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. There's different numbers running around, and all of these stem from real science, right? Different studies have shown X, Y, and Z. This study showed that it's built in this many days. This study showed that it's built in this many days. We have to understand that it's all based on the difficulty of the habit. Certain habits take longer, certain habits don't. And the reason that this myth can be harmful is because people, when they get this into their brain, they start to aim for that number of time, right? So all the time I hear people say like, oh, I just need to get to my 45th day and then it'll be a habit, as if on day 46 everything becomes easier and now it's a habit and everything is automatic and it's just like, oh, it just becomes subconscious at that point. That's not how it works. And as we spoke about in the goal setting module, if you come into things with a unrealistic expectation of what it will or won't be, you're setting yourself up for failure. So if we think that, again, this goal is going to be locked in automatically day 46 because it takes 45 days to build a habit, then day 46 comes and it's not a habit anymore. I still have to think about it. It's not completely habitualized at that point. That becomes a very defeating thing. And that can lead to me quitting, can lead to me failing. The next myth is that habits are out of our control. So I just said a habit has to be subconscious, right? It has to be below our conscious thought. And that's once it becomes a habit. But building habits is well within our control. So while no, we don't control our habits, that's literally what makes them a habit. Building them or getting rid of them or getting new ones, it is within our control. And that's the point of today's lecture. And then the last point is just that it can ever be too late to build a habit, right? The habits are ingrained in us. So people often think like, oh, well, like I just have this habit now. And like, that is what it is. But habits can always be broken. I always use the example of a woman can be a pack-a-day smoker for 20 years and she finds out she's pregnant and she will be able to quit that day, right? Because something changed in her life that allowed her to break that habit. In the same way that someone who, is 60, 70 years old can eat a certain way for their entire life, eating McDonald's, eating hamburgers, eating French fries, then they have a heart attack and their doctor tells them, hey, you need to cut out all the greasy, all the fried, all the whatever. And some people will be able to kick it and switch that thing off right there and then. Some people won't. Again, everyone is different, but I'm just talking about there's no black and white. It's not possible or impossible. It has to do with a variety of factors. So when we talk about habits, we need to understand what's called the habit loop. A habit loop is cue, response, reward. Example of the habit loop would be coffee, right? So although it goes cue, response, reward, we actually start with the reward because no one craves coffee out of nowhere. We drink coffee once or whatever that we try it and we get the reward. The reward is more energy. Our brain then associates drinking coffee with that reward. So the next time I smell coffee, this is why it's a loop. It goes cue, response, reward, and then reward goes back to cue. So cue, the reward is the energy. So I smell the coffee next time, my brain remembers, just like, again, as we spoke about in week 1, my brain is always checking the tape. It is always going to try to save energy, but it's not going to think about what's the pluses, what's the minuses, what's the this, what's the that. It's just going to go check the tape. It's going to remember, cue, smell the coffee. Last time I drank coffee, I had energy. I like that. So the cue is smell the coffee. The response is I drink the coffee. The reward is I get the energy that I want. And then that loop reinforces itself because now again I've gotten the energy. That reward reminds me next time the cue gets strong. I mean the reward is stronger, the response is stronger, the cue is stronger. So the loop reinforces itself the more we do it. If I were to get the cue, I smell the coffee, my brain goes check the tape. Last time I drank that, I got energy. I want energy. I'm going to do the response, which is drink the coffee. But for some reason, I didn't get the energy, like it was decaf or it just wasn't good coffee or something like that. Then that would weaken that loop. And maybe the next time I wouldn't have as strong of a response to that. So same thing. This is a very powerful thing when it comes to food, because with food and drink specifically, it's very immediate, right? When I eat a food, I get that reward right away. So the cue is I see the Oreo. The response is I eat the Oreo. The reward is it tastes good and I immediately enjoy it. That's it. I'm walking down the street and I pass a bakery and I smell the bakery. So the cue is I smell the thing. My brain checks the tape. It remembers the last time I smelled that, it led to me eating something that I enjoyed. The response is I go in and I buy the thing. The reward is, again, I enjoy it. I get a release of happy hormones that I get whenever I eat a donut or a likely baked good. So again, that works very well for, like I said, things like food and things that are very immediate in their reward, right? Cue, response, reward happens, boom, 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 immediately like that. But when we want to talk about building behavior, this is why, again, coming back to the gym example that I said before, it's not as simple as that, because you don't subconsciously go to the gym. You can subconsciously eat an Oreo or, take a sip of coffee or something like that, but you're not going to subconsciously go, on a 10-mile hike or start to wake up or whatever the thing is that you're trying to do. So BJ Fogg, he wrote one of those books that was on the very first slide there. It's called Tiny Habits. And he's a Stanford psychologist who has studied habits and behavior change for 20 years or something like that. Probably the world's leader in habit forming. And he created what's called the Fogg behavior model. The Fogg behavior model is, as shown, B equals MAP. B equals MAP. Behavior equals motivation plus ability plus prompt. So the behavior is the result that we want. So going back to the example of the habit loop, the result is the energy that I'm going to get. And that comes from drinking the coffee. So the motivation is I want the energy. The ability is I have coffee in front of me. I have coffee available to me. And the prompt is the cue, the smell of the coffee that reminds me to do it. So when I have those three things, the motivation, the ability, and the prompt, I'm able to do the behavior and get the result. If I didn't have one of those things, if I didn't have the ability, so I didn't have the coffee, I could have all the motivation in the world, but I don't have the ability to drink the coffee. Or I could have the coffee. I mean, I could have the coffee, or I want the energy that comes from the coffee. I have the ability because the coffee is there, but it's not made, right? So it's in a can, the ground, the pot is there, but I don't have the prompt of the smell to really trigger it in my brain. And that might stop me from doing the behavior as well. And then lastly, if I don't have the motivation, if I don't have a reason to do it, if I don't want the energy, if I don't want the coffee, then I will not make I will not make the behavior. I will not do that. So motivation plus ability plus prompt equals behavior. We also need to understand that BJ, this is BJ talking, not me, but emotion equals action, right? So if we go back to, again, cue, response, reward, yes, we are getting the energy from the coffee, and that's what our brain likes, but it also likes that it makes us happy, right? It's not just the energy, it's like we enjoy being happy. So now it's not just the cue of the smelling the coffee reminds me that I can get energy, which is a great thing. It reminds me that I got energy, which made me happy. Again, the smell of the donut does not just remind me, ooh, I get a donut. It reminds me I will get a donut, which makes me happy. This is the important thing. So when we get to these higher level things, higher level habits that we're trying to build, again, things like exercise, things like waking up, things like anything that's just not as simple as just eating something or drinking something or something like that, if we can tie it to an emotion, there's a much more likelihood of us being able to create a habit. And this is why people who enjoy the gym make a habit out of it. People who enjoy running make a habit out of it, because it's not the result of exercise that they are habitualizing. It's the result of I feel happier after a workout. So my brain puts that into the habit loop. So this is going to be important, because understanding this, we can use this to our advantage. And I'll come back to this later. But another thing you need to understand here is down at the bottom, it says distance counts, closer is better. And you see this little punch card here, right? When you walk into a place with a punch card, as soon as you order, they punch the card, right? That immediacy is important. What doesn't happen is you order your food, you go and you sit down, you eat, you drink, you have a blast. And then on the way out, just as you're about to walk out the door, someone runs up behind you, goes, oh, hey, sir, can I punch your card for you? By that time, you've forgotten about it. You don't care anymore. It's the immediate action of I did the thing, I get the punch. I ordered the pizza, I get the punch. Right? So that's why when we talk about rewards, So the reward of drinking the coffee is the energy. It's immediate. The award of the Oreo thing is immediate because I taste it. And this is why like the gym one, I'm going to use this as an example a lot because it's such a, people always think like, oh, I'm going to make the gym a habit. So you have to reward yourself, right? A lot of people will go, oh, I'm going to reward myself with a cheat meal, or I'm going to reward myself with a day off, or I'm going to reward myself with something like that. But because it's so far away, it's not immediate, your brain doesn't make that connection, right? If I go to the gym on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and my reward is a cheat meal on Friday, my brain does not make the connection of the cheat meal is a result of the action that I did. It doesn't make that connection. So it doesn't create that loop. It doesn't go, gym, want to exercise equals gym equals cheat meal. They're just completely unrelated to my brain. So I never complete the loop, and that's why it doesn't actually become habitualized. So again, we're going to come back to this later, and I just want you to understand this, that one, emotion is important and distance is important, right? How close the reward is to the actual action that itself. So where do people mess up with habits? This is what most people do. And this is the reason why most people have so much trouble building habits. They set big, giant goals. Again, we talked about last week, goal setting, SMART goals, specific, measurable, right? Attainable, realistic, time-bound. Goals that are too big don't get met. And just like habits that are too big don't get met. Every year, January 1st, people come, I'm going to be an exerciser, and I'm going to have a healthy eating habit, and I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water all day of a day. And it's like, these are huge things. And again, go back to the module on goal setting and understand why that doesn't work. Because when we set the goals too big, we set ourselves up for failure, and failure reinforces the failure loop in our head. Remember, the dogs who learned not to run away from the shocks that we talked about in the previous week's module. So when we set ourselves up for failure, we go down a negative spiral, right? Another thing that people try to do is they try to reinvent the wheel. Again, they're trying to change everything about their entire lifestyle. Again, which I understand, because the result is they want to be a healthy person. So it makes sense. Well, a healthy person exercises, a healthy person eats right, a healthy person drinks water, a healthy person sleeps 8 hours a day. But again, that goes right back to setting goals that are too big and too lofty. You're trying to reinvent your entire self. There's no way that your brain is going to make that subconscious, right? If I'm changing so many things, I have to think about it. It has to be active. And again, we said in the beginning, habits are not active. They are subconscious. So if it's too big, it automatically can't be habitual, right? So that's why I say it's big bites. They're trying to drink from a fire hose. They're trying to do too much too soon with too little. So instead, what do? We try tiny habits. And again, this is the name of the book written by BJ Fogg, which I highly recommend to anyone. Why? Because smaller is easier. You set yourself up for success, right? Small habits, as we spoke about in the past, compound interest and compound wins, right? We set ourselves up with small wins, and the more we build those wins, the more likely we are to then get more wins, right? I set a goal, I accomplished it. I set a goal, I accomplished it. I set a goal, I accomplished it. Now that's how it actually becomes habitualized. Also understand, right? Goals, habits have to be subconscious. The more complicated something is, the less chance that less possibility or chance of it being able to be a subconscious effort, right? I can drive, if I'm driving in my car, we've all had this experience, right? Where you're kind of driving home, you're driving on back roads that you've taken a million times, and you kind of just zone out, and you pop up and you're at your destination. You're like, wait, how did I even get here? You weren't paying attention. You were kind of in your head or something like that. But if you're on the highway doing 90 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic, you're going to be 100% on it, right? So that's how it is with habits. If I'm trying to make something that's really intense a habit, I'm going to have to be super zoned in, and I can't make that a subconscious thing. But if it's a leisurely drive, like my drive home when there's no traffic, when there's no nothing, I can actually habitualize that because it's small enough, the chunks are small enough. So we want what's called the minimum effective dose. I don't want to think about, again, reinventing the wheel and creating this entire huge habitual thing of exercise plus water plus eating right plus sleeping plus reading. Like that's not one habit. What's the tiniest thing that I can think of that I can make into a habit? So a very famous one is, if you want to be someone who exercises, you start with one push-up or one squat or 10 seconds of planks, right? Because that is small enough that it can become subconscious. It can become something that we don't even think about. Or just going to the gym in Atomic Habits. And you got another book that was referenced in the beginning here. The author James Clear talks about this. To build the habit of exercising, we start with the habit of just going to the gym. Don't worry about what you do when you get to the gym, because again, that makes it too big. If we worry about just getting to the gym, then we can actually, that's something that can be a very specific, measurable, attainable, smart goal. And then what happens is, the more we habitualize that, we will usually build on it. So that's why people always say that. I was like, well, how can just going to the gym make a difference if I'm trying to lose 50 pounds? Or how can just doing one push-up make a difference? The point is, one, building the habit, and two is that once you do the thing, then you can do more, right? If I go to the gym, that's my habit that I'm trying to build. If I'm at the gym and I'm not saying you can't exercise at that point, that's fine, right? You can go and do more exercise, but that's not the habit. The habit is getting to the gym, because the whole thing, again, it's too much. It's a conscious effort at that point. So same thing with drinking water. If I want to make drinking more water my habit, I might take a sip of water my goal. Now, obviously, I need to drink all the water, but the sip is the habit, because that is such a tiny thing that allows me to build up small wins and build up momentum and actually have a chance at habitualizing it. So we want the minimum effective dose. What is the smallest, tiniest tidbit of the habit that we're trying to build that we can work on to then build on top of? And then we want to use the B = MAP framework from a few slides ago. Behavior equals motivation plus ability plus prompt, right? So to use the water, for example, I want to drink, the result is I want to drink 8 waters a day, 8 glasses of water a day. The motivation is, I've heard that drinking more water is good and I want to be healthier. Ability, do I have water near me? Do I keep a glass near my bed? Do I have a water bottle that I carry around? So if I'm out during the day and I'm super busy, do I have my water bottle flask with me or something like that? And then the prompt could be an alarm that goes off. It could be every morning, first thing when I get out of bed, I drink a glass of water. It can be whatever the cue is to remind you. So it can be alarms in your phone. It can be when I get home from work. It can be just something that happens that reminds us to do the thing. But just the cue doesn't help if I don't have the motivation and the ability, right? I can have my alarm can go off and I could want to drink water, but if I don't have my water bottle with me, tough luck. So when you see this little graph over here, this is why, again, this is so important about SMART goals, because we need, what we want is goals to be in this upper quadrant of easy and rewarding. Because the easier the goal, this is what I mean when I say minimum effective dose, the easier it is to do, the less friction that I'm going to have against it, right? Realize, and we've talked about this before, that anything that I'm setting goals to do, anything that I'm going out of my way to change a behavior, it means that that behavior is difficult. If I was already drinking enough water, if drinking enough water was easy for me, I wouldn't have to try to build a new habit. If, not drinking coffee is easy for me, right? So I don't have to try to build that habit. That's a habit that I already have. So the thing is, anytime that I'm assuming I'm trying to build a new habit, I'm setting a goal, I know that that thing is going to be difficult. So I need to make it as easy as possible so that I have more chance of actually sticking to it. And now you see easy to the right, rewarding at the top here. When I say rewarding, I mean, we spoke last week during goal setting about flow and how we need to be challenged, right? And so boring at the bottom there, I just didn't know what the opposite of rewarding would be. I don't really mean boring in that sense. So just to use some examples to make this a little bit easier, tying my shoe is easy, but it's not rewarding. So I can make it a habit, but it's on the bottom to the right. Okay. So anything to the right of the, of that middle line is going to be easy to build that habit, because again, it's easy. But only in the top upper right quadrant are things that we actually get some type of benefit out of. So again, tying my shoe or brushing my teeth goes in easy but boring. Then we have something like going to the gym. Going to the gym 5 days a week, let's say. That is rewarding, but it's all the way to the left because it's difficult. And then we have something like, I don't know, let's say going to the gym if you don't want to go to the gym. So if you don't want to go to the gym, meaning it's boring for you and it's difficult, that's when you're in that bottom left-hand quadrant where you're never going to make that a habit. So anything outside of the bottom left-hand quadrant can become a habit. It's just a question of how hard it's going to be. But when we have something that's easier and rewarding, that's when we hit that magic sweet spot and where we're able to actually create habits. So to use the gym example, so if going to the gym 5 days a week is my goal, but that takes me too far on the left side and makes it too difficult, how can I shrink that goal and make it a little bit easier so that it becomes more to the right on the easy side? And that's why I was talking about before, the minimum effective dose, just going to the gym, just showing up, just doing a push-up, just doing a squat, whatever the thing is. Also, another thing that we have to understand, and remember, I spoke right here about emotion. Emotion equals action. So in order to make something rewarding, we can tie an emotion to it. So let's use the water drinking example, because this is a big goal, that a big habit that people always want to work on. They have a goal to start drinking more water. And if we look at the behavior model, the result is I want to drink more water. But the motivation is why. Like, you know, again, some people are intrinsically, internally motivated, where they're like, I just want to drink more water because it's good for me. But not all of us have that. So what do you do if you don't have that intrinsic motivation to just be more hydrated? Because it's like, I don't feel a difference, right? If I drink 1 glass of water or drink 8 glasses of water, I don't really feel a difference. Like, I know that 8 glasses is better for me, but how do I make myself want to do that thing when I don't really have a reason? And that's why we tie emotion to this, and we make the emotion the reward. So it's not the drinking the water that's the reward, it's how we feel when we do that. But how do we make ourselves feel good about something that we don't really care about? That's where affirmations and things like these come into play. So remember, I had you guys in the very beginning write down certain things, and I challenged you to make your get out of bed mantra, right? As soon as my feet touch down, I get out of bed. So if we can take this concept and apply it to here. Behavior, I want to drink more water. Ability, I have the water available to me. The prompt is my alarm goes off. I drink the water. As soon as I finish the water, I say to myself, I am accomplishing my goals. And that makes me smile. So now the reward becomes the affirmation that I do when I do the thing, right? And that's why, and the reason that this actually works is because as I say here, distance counts, right? So because I am so immediately rewarding myself with that little affirmation, I drink the water and immediately I am working towards my goals. I am hydrating myself. I am whatever the thing is that you want to say, whatever makes you feel good. This is a very personal thing. It doesn't matter what you say. It's something that makes you feel good. It should make you smile. So when I get out of bed in the morning, I drink my water, I put my feet down and I say, today is going to be a great day. And I smile. Every time I say it, I smile because it's just habitualized in me. It makes me feel good when I say that. So I can use that to trick my brain into actually wanting to do that habit, because it might not care about the water, but it does care about the feel good I get from saying my affirmation. And that's how we get the reward for something that's easy. If we're trying to build a habit, here, you see I use flossing as an example. We're going to talk about habit stacking, but flossing would fall on the spectrum of easy but boring. And I know this is one of the ones I've used this for. So habit stacking is stacking a habit that you want on top of a habit that you already do. So myself personally, again, I've known for my entire life that flossing is something that you're supposed to do. Everyone says to floss. Every time I go to the dentist, they say to floss. I am sitting here as a 31-year-old man who I've just started flossing this year, because I made a goal to create a habit. So how did I do that? One, I stacked the habit. I already brushed my teeth, and flossing is very closely related to that. So I decided that every time I brush my teeth, I would floss. But I've been saying that for a long time. Everyone knows you brush your teeth when you floss. I mean, you floss when you brush your teeth, whatever order you do it in. So why has that not been a thing? Because of exactly what I've been saying now. So in order for me to make it a habit, what did I do? First, I made it small. I didn't say every time I brush my teeth, I'm going to floss all my teeth. I said every time I brush, I'm going to floss just one tooth. That was the first part of the habit. So I made it as small as possible, the minimum effective dose. Then, because it was boring to me and I don't actually get a reward from flossing my teeth. I mean, I'm sure I do it in terms of my oral health, but that doesn't actually, it's not something I care about right now in my life. I'm sorry. So in order to give myself a reward, I made an affirmation. I said, it's something, every time I brush my teeth, I take my tooth, I floss my one tooth, because that's the habit. The habit isn't flossing all my teeth. The habit is flossing my one tooth. And I say to myself in my mirror, my affirmation, I am feeling like this. And that makes me smile. Now, at that point, more often than not, I will then go on and floss the rest of my teeth because I'm already there. I'm already flossing. But that's not the point. As long as I floss that one tooth, I've kept the habit alive. So I did that by A, stacking it with the habit that I already had, B, making it as small as possible, and C, tying it to the emotion, right? It wasn't the action of flossing that I cared about. It was the emotion of feeling good for completing a task and saying my affirmation. And that emotion then allows me to want to repeat that action over time. So this is a great way to structure this if you want to understand how to do the perfect habit stack. It's just with this sentence. After I blank, then I will blank. So after I, something I already do, then I will blank, something I want to do. So we already went over the goal of setting a positive affirmation for the first thing in the morning. So that's a very easy one. After I get out of bed in the morning, then I will say my affirmation. It needs to be very specific. So that's why I like the touchdown phrase, right? Because as soon as after my feet touch the floor, then I will say my affirmation. Again, coming back to the immediacy effect. If I say something like, after I get out of bed, well, what does get out of bed mean? Does it mean when I take the covers off? Does it mean when I, unplug my phone? Does it mean when I go to brush my teeth? Does it mean, the more specific I can get, the more, again, subconscious, the less thinking that I have to do about it. The habits is all about not thinking. So again, when I brush my teeth, after I brush my teeth, as soon as I put my toothbrush down, it goes like this. My toothbrush is being put down with this hand. My right hand grabs the floss pick. That's literally how it happens for me. Then I brush my one teeth and I say my affirmation. And that completes the loop for me every single time. So now we understand a little bit more about habits and what they are and what they aren't and how we can use them. Let's dig into this. So if you remember story time, Back to the Future, way back 2 weeks ago, when we spoke about stories, right? Stories and self-talk were the start of this entire course. And again, that was for a reason. Like I said, everything builds on everything else. So a story is just a habit or a habit is just a story. It's the same thing. When we talked about stories, I said that your future behavior is dictated by the story that your brain tells. When your brain is faced with a decision, the example I gave last time was about, should I watch more Netflix or should I get up and go to the gym, right? So you're sitting on the couch and the Netflix says, are you still watching? Your brain has a choice in that moment to click yes or to continue or to get up and go to the gym. Your brain is not going to weigh all the pros and the cons. It is going to just review the tape. What is the type of thing that I normally do in this situation? And then it will continue on to do that thing. And that's exactly how habits work. When I get to the point of putting my toothbrush down, my brain reviews the tape. What do I usually do in this situation? I usually go and grab the floss with my other hand. And then what happens? Then I get that nice happy feeling that I get when I floss my one tooth and I get to say my affirmation. So this is how the habit becomes a loop. It's the result tells my brain the story that it then can complete over and over again, right? So the smell, the taste, the energy, the floss, the feeling of goodness, the affirmation. It's a loop that keeps going. And it's the way that our brain can deal with all of the stuff that's going on. This is why I keep coming back to this word subconscious, because there's too much going on. Our brain wants habits. Most of what we do in our life is habits, right? So breaking news, we already have a ton of habits. Most of what we do every day is habitual. You're not sitting there thinking when you get out of bed, take the covers off, put my feet on the floor, slip my feet into the slippers, stand up, do this, do that, tie my shoe, get dressed. Again, it would be too energy expensive. It would take too much time. It would take too much effort. Our brain always wants to delegate this stuff to the subconscious levels. So understanding that, the first place to start when we think about building new habits is to reverse engineer it. Where are our habits already, right? We get so caught up on, okay, what are the new habits that I want to build? We forget, but we already have a ton of habits. Let's look at that first, right? Because as we spoke about before, habit stacking is a great way that we are going to be able to build new habits. So if we can reverse engineer, we can look at the habits that we already have, then it becomes much easier. So a lot of people are very easy to and quick to point out their bad habits or their habits that are particularly that stand out to them. I smoke, I drink, I do whatever, because obviously these things weigh heavy on our brain. But realize brushing your teeth is a habit, tying your shoe is a habit. You know, if you get up every day, ladies, you have the same place that your purse is and you pick it up, you skip your thing, you grab your keys, you do like all the things that we do that we aren't actively thinking of, that we do over and over and over, are habitual. So if you take the same route to work every day, that's a habit. If on that route to work, you stop at Starbucks every time, and again, without even thinking, your order is done on the app, and that's a habit. So a good activity that we can do is make 2 lists. Start with the habits I already have. So this might take some time because a lot of them we don't even realize are happening. Again, we can point out the ones about smoking cigarettes. We can talk about, I watch too much Netflix, I do this. But really, again, I've always encouraged you since week 1 to keep a little notebook and to be writing things down. So this is just another thing to add. Look at your day throughout the day, take pause breaks in the morning when you're doing something, you know, as your coffee is brewing or whatever, and really think about the habitual things that you did. Right. So that's a great one. Say you're brewing your coffee. Take a moment to realize all of the things that had to happen for you to get to the point of your coffee brewing. So when I brew my coffee in the morning, as it's going, it takes, 2-3 minutes to brew. But what had to happen? I had to open my cabinet that's to the right here. That's where my filter is. Put the filter in the coffee. Then I have to open the can of coffee. I take my scoops out. 1, 2, 3. I take the pot, fill that with water, and then pour the water into the coffee machine. So all of that, again, is happening on a loop because I've done it so many times that it's just automatic. But that's not really one habit. That's a whole bunch of things that have amalgamated into my coffee morning routine. So when I understand that, this gives me a lot of jumping off points for when I make my second list of what are the things that I want. So say I want to exercise, and we said that we want to break it down into the smallest thing possible. So say I want to do push-ups as my thing. If I say that I just need to do 1 push-up, I can take that whole list and start inserting 1 push-up in the random habits as a stack. So when I open my cabinet to grab my filter, I will do 1 push-up. The cue becomes grabbing the filter. The response becomes doing my push-up, and the reward is the good feeling I get from doing the push-up. And if I need to emphasize that more, I can add my affirmation at the end so I can guarantee that I get the 1 good feeling. Sometimes I feel good enough after just doing a push-up because I accomplished something that I said I was going to do. So sometimes that does give us that good feeling. But for the times that it doesn't, I can add, I am working towards my goals. I am building a healthy body, because that tells literally telling my brain, telling myself that this is something that I want to do. This is something that I am getting a benefit out of. Again, the stories that we tell ourselves become the future that we then live. We can use this to our advantage. And now, putting it all together. Habits, I've been saying this whole time, need to be subconscious, and they need to be tiny. So for this week, the goal is to be as small as possible. After we make our lists, of habits that I have and then habits that I want, we are only going to pick one. This is very important. Again, we are not reinventing the wheel. We are not drinking water from a fire hose. We are doing SMART goals, specific, tiny, measurable goals. All right. Minimum effective dose. Whatever the thing is that you want to work on, think about what is the absolute smallest measure of this that would still count as doing the habit, right? So if it's exercise, again, what's the minimum smallest thing that will still make me do a habit? If it's water, if it's just drinking a sip of the water, if it's waking up early, what without an alarm, I don't know, whatever the thing is, how can I make it as small as possible? And we're going to use the habit tracker sheet to keep track of this. And this can, again, be one of those things that is a reward in and of itself. So we spoke last week when we did about goal setting about check marks and keeping lists and why that feels so good. So in the same way that an affirmation can be a forced emotional reward, so can checking something off. So every time I do my habit, I give myself a check. I have actually behind me, you can't see, I have a glass jar full of marbles and an empty glass jar next to it. Well, now it's not empty. It has a few marbles in it. Every time I want to journal as my habit, but people tell me journaling is a great thing all the time. I wanted to do it, but journaling does not give me a feeling of goodness. I mean, sometimes it does if I have a particularly good journaling session, but if I have to do it every single day, it's just, it's just something I'm doing. I'm going through the motions. So in order to make it habitualized for me, I created a reward for myself. The reward is as soon as I write in my journal, I take one marble from the full jar and drop it into the empty jar. Then I say my affirmation. So that satisfying little clink of the marble dropping into the jar and me saying, I am working towards my goals, that becomes a reward. It's not the writing in the journal that is the reward, because that wouldn't give me any feeling for myself personally. So I had to create something. But that's a very tiny thing. Drop the thing, say the affirmation, writing in the journal. But writing in the journal, there's days when I write pages. There's days when I just write, today was a good day, because that's the goal. That's the habit, is the just writing. It is not write for 10 minutes, write 2 pages, write the next whatever great work of whomever. The habit is just the writing. It's the smallest, most minimum thing that I can do to make it count. If I didn't write it all, then I can't say that counts as writing in the journal. But as long as I write a single word, that counts, and I can check it off. I can move my marble. I can say my affirmation. And by doing that over and over, my brain begins to associate the writing with the thing, the dropping the marble with the affirmation, which makes me feel good. Eventually, I won't need the marble and the affirmation because my brain will just associate the journaling with the feeling good. And that's when it has become a habit. And now I'm all done, and I'm going to open it up for